Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Coffee with Envision. I'm Dana Walkoff, President and CEO of Envision Networks, and I have a couple of announcements before we start today's presentation of Demographics for a New Age of Radio. Today, we've assembled two respected programmers to walk through myths about millennials, Generation X, and baby boomers. Hopefully, the facts will encourage you to program to these audiences that each represent huge revenue potential for radio stations. We'll have a short Q&A at the end of Brian's and John's presentations. Please ask questions using the chat feature or send an email to Dave Hintz at daveh@envisionnetworks.com. The webinar is being recorded and we'll send you a link to it after the presentation has concluded. We also use the recorded version for future playback on the envisionnetworks.com website. With that, let me introduce both of our guests today. Brian Burns is the brand father of No Borders Radio. The format targets culturally blended millennials through a musical balance of the best North American pop hits with their counterparts from Central and South America. Since 2005, Brian has also run his own independent broadcast consultancy. Prior to that, he was a programmer and on-air talent in such markets as San Francisco, Salt Lake City, Kansas City, Omaha, and Buffalo. John Holliday, who will be our second speaker discussing Gen X and baby boomers, is the managing partner of Radio Consulting Services, which he founded in 2009. John also programs Easy FM Radio and the holiday music format of Christmas 24/7. His programming and on-air stripes were earned at Westwood One and the Jones Radio Networks, and he worked at stations in Denver, Miami, Boston, and Providence, just to name a few markets. So, with that being said, let's all sit back, relax, enjoy the webinar. Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Dano. The first myth that we'd like to talk about today is that millennials are lazy, entitled kids. Well, you're thinking, okay, yeah, these millennials, they're Starbucks drinking, avocado toast eating, unemployed liberal arts students that live in mom's basement. Well, nothing actually could be further than the truth, because millennials are a group of men and women that are already nearing their middle age. Pew Research identifies millennials as those born between 1977 and 1992. Which puts the demo range between 27 and 42. Isn't that just the sweet spot of that 25-54 you're looking for? Not only are millennials a unique, I don't even know how to put it here. They have very different characteristics than boomers. They're very diverse. I mean, when you break it down demographically, 2/3 of the older millennials, okay, this is 35 to 42, they're married. Yet on the other side, the young side, only 1/4 of the millennials between 26 and 34 are in a partnership. Okay, so you can see there's really a big divide amongst the millennials. But what they do share in common is they're becoming adults, and they are adults. They have children. They have, buying decisions they make every day. As a matter of fact, I hope you're sitting down for this, but millennials have now overtaken boomers in population as of this year, 73 million to 72 million. Yes, boomers are falling, and we can't get up. So the upshot of this is millennials aren't kids anymore. They've become adults. We're the ones that became grandparents. Myth number 2, millennials are not well educated. Well, either avocado toast makes you smarter, or that $1.5 billion that's owed in tuition, doesn't exist. More millennials have a college degree than any other generation. 47% of that upper range, the 35 to 42-year-olds, have already received a post-secondary degree. And millennial women, they've surpassed their mother's education by 4-fold. 4 times as many millennial women as boomer women have college educations. This has put them in the forefront of a generational shift. They have much more cultural variety in their lives. It's challenged everything, their career goals, their housekeeping, their parenting roles. It's very different from boomers. They're surrounded by a lot of different ideas and lifestyles now. interfaith and interracial marriages. They all stay in touch with the world. 3/4 say it's important to follow world events. Half of them frequent restaurants that serve non-American dishes. So the point is, millennials are more educated, they're more worldly, and they're more accepting of new ideas than previous generations. And finally, there's a myth about their terrestrial radio listening, and it's perpetuated by the NAB of sorts. Yes, millennials listen to radio, but they don't have a pop-up blocker. Their finger does the pop-up blocking. It doesn't equate to use. Yes, they use it, but how much do they use it if there's not a compelling brand there for them? And I want to accentuate this by telling a story about a song that was out 2 years ago, New Rules by Dua Lipa. If you're in the contemporary realm, you know what it is. Undeniable smash, 5 times platinum, 2 Grammy nominations. That song caught fire within days of its release on Spotify and took over 20 weeks just to get on the U.S. Billboard chart, just to get on the chart. In 2017, 45 of the top 100 streaming songs never even received radio airplay. Think about that. So, is the top 40 radio chart even, have any credibility? Is it really 150 unique radio stations, or is it a reflection of just a few companies exchanging airplay for money in concerts? I'll let you be the judge. The point is that radio is not providing a unique musical experience for millennials. Not just musical, but what goes between the music. It's passive programming, and they're just not going to buy it. And your status brand, because we're Star 94, it's not going to be enough to convince millennials to use a product they've already grown tired of. Because as my stepdaughter told me, who the hell wants to hear songs that were hits 6 months ago? So the upshot to millennials, FM radio right now is no different than TV reruns. Take that to the bank. John, tell me about what's going on with boomers.
Good stuff. Thanks, Brian. Well, we're going to talk about boomers and Gen Xers today. And the first myth is that boomers and Gen Xers no longer listen to radio. So I've got some statistics here. According to Nielsen, 98% of baby boomers listen to AM/FM radio on a daily basis, more time with radio than any other demo at 2 hours and 3 minutes. 9 out of 10 Gen Xers still listen to traditional radio during the week as well, and they're just under 2 hours a day in their listening. They do split their time with other options. That would be Gen Xers splitting their time with other audio options, such as streaming services, including Spotify and their personal music collections. Let's move on to the next myth. The next myth is that baby boomers aren't tech savvy. Where's my flip phone? Although boomers are late adopters of mobile technology, this is changing pretty fast. More than 8 in 10 own a smartphone and have a profile on popular sites like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. More than half of them stream video at least weekly, and a majority now owns a connected TV. 4 in 10 regularly play video games, while more than half have downloaded a radio or music-centric app. They're FaceTiming with their grandchildren, posting photos on Instagram, watching TV on demand on Netflix, Hulu, and different apps such as that. While the millennials are busy sharing stuff, the boomers are busy buying stuff on Amazon and other online merchants. Let's talk about another myth about Gen Xers this time, and that is marketing to Gen Xers with AM/FM radio won't work. It's a frequently challenged marketing myth, and it's becoming increasingly difficult, so they say, to reach young people via traditional marketing. Here's a fact about Gen Xers, okay? Gen Xers are the last group of people who have a foot in the analog world and a foot in the digital world. And while many marketers are seemingly convinced that Generation X won't respond to traditional marketing tactics That's simply not true. The truth is, from TV and radio to direct mail, the reality is that the most effective ways to reach Gen X are surprisingly traditional. Yeah, there's social media, of course, and email and other digital platforms, which are also part of an effective media mix. But there's also things like traditional direct mail. So that's a little bit about marketing to Gen Xers. I've got one more myth to explore today, and this is also about Gen Xers. And that myth is that tech-savvy Gen Xers reject traditional media. I just mentioned that they have a foot in the analog world from when they were first growing up, and a foot in the digital world as things have progressed during their lifetimes. So Gen Xers, they still gravitate towards traditional media. A lot of people don't seem to realize that, but a study shows 97% of Gen Xers still listen to the radio, 62% still read newspapers, and 85% have favorite television shows. So when communicating with Generation X, traditional channels should not be overlooked by advertisers, because a clear majority still value information from those sources. Daniel, I'm going to kick it back to you now.
Thanks, John, and thank you, Brian, for sharing your insight. We do have some questions that were submitted, so let's see how many we can get to in the next few minutes here. Brian, let's start with you. Rob in New York asks, why do people claim that millennials don't listen to radio? And what can I tell my higher-ups to encourage them to seriously look at programming to this demographic?
There's so much spin and so many voices. I think the best thing that he can do is take the boomer powers that be out and observe millennials' action. Sit down and have your own focus group. It doesn't have to be at Starbucks. I mean, whether it's your own children or, whatever, you have to get in their world and understand how they think. I mean, they'd rather pay for Netflix, for Game of Thrones, than watch Celebrity Pets on NBC because it's free. And they'd rather pay for Spotify than listen to the Jonas Brothers for the 247th time because it's on KISS 102. If you give them something unique, believe me, it's not about the brand anymore. It's the content, and they'll come for the content, and then you'll have your brand.
Good thought. John, let's go to you. This one is from Bill in Illinois. He says, I see a lot of industry studies come out year after year, and they all claim that boomers are still listening to radio well into the 90% range. But how is that measured, and how is that sold to advertisers?
That's a good question. I think, what we can safely say is for the next 10 years, the younger end of the boomers will continue to be part of the buying demo. After that, honestly, I think it's anyone's best guess if Madison Avenue is going to change their focus on traditional target demos. And if they do, I would hope and think radio will respond with more programming tailored to the demo. So far, that's not been the case historically.
Yeah, good point. Brian, over to you. This is from JD in Florida, and he's asking if you can expand on the millennials would rather spend their money on a unique experience than a status brand. So in one of those slides, I think you said that that's what the millennials preferred, was a unique experience. He wants to know, what can I do on air to attract millennial listeners that would be experiential?
Wow, that is a great question. I think that your radio station has to mean more to them than just platitudes. I mean, they've heard it all before, and they get to reject it at the click of a button, unlike we as boomers did when we consumed the media of our age. But they just don't have time for the BS anymore. So the best thing you can do is be humble and be honest. You don't need big voices. You need well-written branding that speaks specifically to the younger demographic.
Great. Yeah, good point. All right, so that we can make sure that we get our time in and we won't run over, I'm going to do one more question. This is coming from Nikki in Iowa, and I guess, John, this would be for you. How long can we anticipate boomers being active spenders that can attract advertisers to my station? And will Generation X fill the same void as time moves on?
Good bottom line question, Nikki. Yeah, boomers are going to remain active spenders into their golden age. However, what they spend the money on is going to change. Those categories are going to change as they age. Again, we know they will be part of the buying demo for the next 10 years. We can take that to the bank. But history would indicate that the Gen Xers are going to follow in a similar pattern. I think, again, unless we see those changes on Madison Avenue with progressive thinking about target demos, I think it's going to be more of the same, and we're going to just see a repeat of history. That's my take on it, Dano.
All right. And with that, I want to thank both Brian and John for their time today. We appreciate both of them taking a deeper look at some of the myths of the two very different generations. Please watch your inbox for the following. First, we'll send you out a link to a survey about today's webinar. We'll randomly draw one winner from all of those who take the survey to receive a limited edition Coffee with Envision coffee and soup mug. Yes, it is a mug large enough for a bowl of soup, but I personally use it for my daily cup of coffee. By the way, today's topic came from direct feedback received from the previous participants. So we do read all ideas and comments submitted, and because of that, we were able to create today's webinar. Secondly, we'll email you a recording of this webinar so you can revisit it, you can share it, you can forward the video to others in your group or on your team. And finally, look for an invitation to our next Coffee with Envision. That will be coming to you sometime this September. So thank you for attending. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all next time on the radio.